Picture spending $500 million building the most beautiful sailing yacht the world has ever seen. 3 masts taller than a 15-story building. A figurehead carved in the image of the woman you love. And then, just 3 years later, quietly putting the whole thing up for sale. That is exactly what Jeff Bezos has done. So today, let me take you inside Koru, the $500 million super yacht that became the richest man's most beautiful headache. Let me start with the number, because it is a big one. Koru is reported to have cost Jeff Bezos at least $500 million. To put that in perspective, that is more than the entire annual budget of some small nations spent on a single private vessel, and Bezos can afford it. His net worth sits at around $255 billion, which means this $500 million yacht cost him roughly 0.2% of his fortune. For you and me, that is like buying a very nice sandwich. But Koru is not just expensive, it is a genuine record breaker. At 127 meters, that is 417 feet of polished perfection, Koru is widely reported as the largest sailing yacht in the world. Now, I will be honest with you, because this is a documentary, not a sales brochure, there is one vessel that is technically longer, Andrei Melnichenko's Sailing Yacht A, which stretches almost 143 meters. But that ship is really a sail-assisted motor yacht, a futuristic spaceship of a thing. Koru is a true, classic, 3-masted sailing schooner. So depending on who you ask, Koru is either the largest sailing yacht on Earth or a very close second. Either way, it is colossal. Let me show you what $500 million actually buys. Koru was built by Oceanco, the legendary Dutch shipyard, and it took years of work in the Netherlands before it was finally delivered in April of 2023. The hull is steel, the superstructure is aluminium, and the decks are laid with rich teak. Those 3 masts I mentioned tower over the water, and when the sails are unfurled, this thing looks like something out of the 19th century. The golden age of sail, except it is dripping with 21st century billionaire money. Inside, the numbers keep climbing. Koru can sleep 18 guests across 9 staterooms, and it takes a crew of around 40 people to run her. 40. That is a small company's worth of staff dedicated to keeping one family comfortable at sea. The interior was crafted by the London design studio Billionaire, Henry and Zervudaci, a name synonymous with old money taste, and the naval architecture came from the renowned Dijkstra firm. The aft deck features a large pool. The bowsprit, that long spar reaching out from the front of the ship, has its own seating area, so you can perch right out over the open ocean. And below decks, 2 MTU diesel engines can push all 3,400 plus tons of her to a top speed of 17 knots when the wind is not enough. Let me put that scale into perspective for you. Koru is longer than a football field, with room to spare. Those 3 masts rise so high that, as we will see, they could not even fit under a city bridge. And while Bezos has never confirmed the exact price himself, the reported $500 million would place Koru among the most expensive yachts ever built. In the same rarefied company as Roman Abramovich's Eclipse and the Gulf State mega vessels. For a man who started Amazon out of a garage in 1994, selling books online, this floating palace is about as far from that humble beginning as it is possible to sail. Now here is where the story gets personal and, honestly, a little romantic. Sitting on the prow of Koru is a wooden figurehead, carved in the style of a winged Roman goddess. And that goddess bears an uncanny resemblance to Lauren Sanchez, the former television presenter and licensed pilot who is now Jeff Bezos' wife. Long flowing hair, delicate features, the whole thing. Bezos essentially immortalized the woman he loves on the front of the most expensive sailing yacht on the planet. Around her neck hangs a pendant in the shape of a Koru. And that is no accident, because that little spiral is the key to the whole boat. So what does Koru actually mean? It is a Maori word from New Zealand. It describes the spiral shape of an unfurling silver fern frond just before it opens. To the Maori people, the Koru symbolizes new beginnings, growth and peace. For a man starting a new chapter of his life with a new partner, naming his $500 million yacht after the idea of new beginnings is, I have to admit, a beautiful touch. Bezos took a symbol of fresh starts and built it into 417 feet of steel and teak. But there was one problem with this floating masterpiece, and it is a problem money alone could not fix. Koru is a sailing yacht, with those enormous masts, which means you cannot land a helicopter on it. The masts are simply in the way, and for a couple who love to travel to the most remote corners of the planet, especially when your partner is a licensed pilot, that is a real limitation. So what does a man worth $250 billion do? He simply buys a second yacht. Meet Abeona, Koru's shadow. Abeona is a roughly 250-foot support vessel that reportedly cost Bezos another $75 million. Its job is to follow Koru around the world, carrying everything the main yacht cannot. And crucially, Abeona has a rear-deck helipad and a hangar large enough to store an Airbus helicopter, so Lauren Sanchez can fly to and from the yacht whenever she pleases. Think about that. The helicopter problem was so important that Bezos solved it by spending another $75 million on an entire separate ship just to carry the chopper. That is the kind of problem-solving you can only do at the very top of the rich list. And of course, running two enormous yachts is not cheap. The annual operating and maintenance costs for the pair are estimated at around $30 million a year, and some reports put the figure even higher, closer to $50 million. Let me make that real for you. Bezos is spending more every single year just to keep these boats floating than most successful businesses earn in a decade. The crew, the fuel, the dockage, the upkeep on all that teak and steel, it never stops. And Koru has not exactly been a quiet private retreat either. Over the past few years, the yacht has reportedly hosted a parade of famous faces, the kind of guest list most of us will only ever read about. From fellow billionaires to Hollywood names, Koru became a floating symbol of a certain ultra-exclusive lifestyle, photographed by paparazzi and tracked by yacht spotters every time it dropped anchor somewhere glamorous. Which, as we are about to find out, turned out to be part of the problem. Now, you would think a yacht this beautiful would bring nothing but joy. But Koru's story is also a story of trouble, and the first real headache came before the ship had even left the factory. To get Koru out of the Oceanco shipyard and into the open sea, it had to travel through the city of Rotterdam. And there was one obstacle in the way, a historic steel bridge called De Hef, or the Koningshaven Bridge. Built in 1927, De Hef survived the bombing of Rotterdam in World War II and had become a beloved landmark, a symbol of the city's resilience. The problem? Koru's masts were too tall to fit underneath it. So Oceanco floated an idea, and it caused an absolute uproar. The proposal was to temporarily dismantle the middle section of the historic bridge to let the yacht pass through, with a promise to put it back afterward. The reaction from the people of Rotterdam was immediate and furious. Why should a beloved 100-year-old monument be taken apart so a billionaire's yacht could squeeze through? Thousands voiced their anger online. And then came the moment that turned this into a global story. Someone created a Facebook event titled, "Throw Eggs at Jeff's Yacht Day." Over 5,000 people signed up, pledging to gather at the bridge and pelt the $500 million yacht with eggs if it dared to pass. Faced with that kind of public fury, the plan collapsed. Oceanco backed down and scrapped the idea of touching the bridge. Instead, they came up with an alternative. They removed Koru's enormous masts before transport, floated the now mast-less yacht under De Hef without laying a finger on the historic structure, and then reassembled those towering masts at another location before the ship finally set sail. The bridge stood untouched, and the eggs stayed in their cartons. A small victory for the people of Rotterdam. And here, my friends, is the twist that makes this whole story so fascinating. After all of that, the $500 million price tag, the record-breaking size, the figurehead of his wife, the $75 million helicopter ship, the war with an entire Dutch city, Jeff Bezos is now reportedly selling Koru. As of 2026, the world's most beautiful sailing yacht is on the market. So why on earth would he let it go? Well, it turns out the very thing that makes Koru so spectacular, its enormous size, is also its biggest flaw. Reports suggest the yacht is simply too big to enjoy. It has been denied entry to premier harbors. During the Monaco Grand Prix, one of the great gatherings of the global elite, Koru reportedly could not get in. And when Bezos married Lauren Sanchez in a lavish Venice ceremony in the summer of 2025, Koru was too large to navigate Venice's shallow lagoon, forced to sit far offshore while the celebrations happened without it. Imagine owning the most beautiful boat in the world and not being able to bring it to your own wedding. Add in those soaring maintenance bills, the relentless public attention, the headaches at every port, and you start to understand the decision. Bezos reportedly wants something smaller, something more discreet, something that can actually slip into the harbors he wants to visit without becoming a global spectacle. There is a strange and very human lesson buried in all of this. Even when you are the richest man alive, even when you can buy literally anything, the biggest and most expensive version of a thing is not always the one that makes you happy. So that is Koru. $500 million of sailing perfection, 417 feet long, 3 towering masts, a figurehead of the woman Bezos loves, a name that means new beginnings, a $75 million sidekick to carry the helicopter, and a battle with a century-old bridge that the whole internet watched. The most beautiful sailing yacht ever built, and now perhaps just a little too beautiful and a little too big for even its billionaire owner to keep. I would love to know what you think. If you had $500 million to spend on the seas, would you build a record-breaking giant like Koru, knowing it might be too big to ever truly enjoy? Or would you go for something smaller and quieter that can actually take you everywhere you want to go? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this little tour of the world's most extraordinary luxury, you know what to do. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.